So, quick thing I want to mention, which sort of is related because it's the same publisher. Square Enix are giving away for this week only Steam keys of Omnicron, the game I talked about last week, the Quantic Dream game with David Bowie in it. They're giving it away for free. Basically, you just have to go to the Square Enix store, set up an account if you already haven't, and get it, and you'll get the code, and then you can obviously input it into Steam. A fitting tribute to the man, as a sort of add-on to last week, because that develops over the I think developed Thursday. Also, what came Thursday though is the topic of this video. I hope you get the meaning of the title. The S is silent in Hitman. And no, it's not plural. The S goes at the start. So, it was a surprise to me. I don't think it was this year. Was it this year's E3? I think, yeah, it was. This year's E3 when they had a trailer for Hitman, which possibly seems to be a reboot, even though it isn't. Obviously because of the name. And, it was looking impressive with the next-gen graphics and everything. And they were saying it's coming out by winter. Or, by the end of the year. I was like, this isn't a 10 Cloverfield Lane situation. It's like, you really haven't done this in enough time for a new engine. Some would say Far Cry Primal has done that, but in essence, it's using the same engine as Far Cry 4, and I don't think there's going to be too many differences, bar the fact there isn't guns. But it then came round to EGX last September, and we went to, there was basically a showcase event, mini sort of theatre, showcasing off the design of one of the levels, which is the Paris level, which I had already talked about, and mentioned at the end that they were doing Italy. And by this time, the game had come out. The news for the game had come out that it had been delayed, unsurprisingly, till March. And I was okay with that. But then the whole details about the concept of the thing started getting a bit strange to me, and that they were going to provide a base game, and then over the next 2 or 3 months would be adding, like, the way they were saying it was DLC to add additional levels to the game, which will continue on the story. And immediately that I was going, well, that sounds like you're trying to do it episodically. And they were immediately like, no, it's not episodic. It's a full game experience. I don't want to say I told you so, but this Thursday, people knew something was up because people on the Sony store were getting their PS4 editions of Hitman cancelled for no real reason given. And we expected there was going to be some reason, and the reason came Thursday. They've now officially announced it is fully episodic. A Hitman game, which is an action sort of stealth thing, is episodic. What? The great thing is, in the statement that they put, we fully acknowledge that decision may frustrate some players. It doesn't frustrate me. It disappoints me that you think the Hitman franchise is on a par. See, I can't even say like the Telltale games because that's a different genre. The closest thing I can compare it to would be Resident Evil Revelations. And they only did that for the second game. And that was on a weekly basis. And then by the end of it, within a month of the first one coming out, the game was there available in a full retail version with everything. The way this Hitman thing is going is people won't be getting the full game until June. And my honest opinion is, screw Square Enix over. I feel they've already paid for the fact that the Tomb Raider game had its console exclusivity for a year on Xbox One, regardless of how well the PC. Be interesting to see if the PC port does actually better than the console version. But either way, just because it worked for Life is Strange, Square Enix, doesn't mean it's going to work for everything. Well, no, actually thinking about it, you've already said Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be episodic. Which, for a game of that scale, because RPGs are big games, whereas Hitman games are, with respect, not. If you can get 10 to 12 hours of it, I'd say you've got a good game. That's as a whole package. So, the deal is, oh, God, it gets even worse. So, they previously said that the base game would have a certain number of missions and then others would come later. I'm getting this from the Eurogamer article, by the way. But now they're reorganizing this into discrete episodic chunks going over not even till the summer, till the end of the year. So the beta launches, I believe it's sometime mid-February, 12th of February. And the game itself is launching on the 11th of March. However, rather than what they were saying it was going to be, the base game is only having 2 missions, one of which is a prologue, which is basically just, I guess, people getting used to the new controls if they haven't played a Hitman game before. And then the Paris level. So, from then on, April will see episode 2. And I'm calling that episode because Square Enix wants you to think that. And the reason I say that, I'll get to, because it's further on in the statement, which I think is... But I'll give my opinion at then. So, Italy's coming in April. Then in May will be Morocco. And then over the rest of the year, they say monthly content drops, but they list 3. So I don't know whether it is actually every month. But after that, there will be another 3, which include Japan, Thailand, and the USA. But the thing is, there's also going to be weekly live events and other things that are going to be intersped in to sort of drag it out. I'm guessing the weekly live events, I mean, they've said it's going to be sometimes as a target that's going to be only around for the weekend, so you've got to kill them. They'll be taken out of the game or whatever in a patch. Or updates or whatever. But the added snag is all the pricing. So the day one pack is going to cost $15. Then each additional pack, each additional episode will be priced at $10 each. Or you can get the $50 season pass to get everything as soon as it comes out. And then if you want to get the whole lot, it's going to be $60, but obviously you're going to have to wait till the end of the year. Well, no, if you buy the whole lot rather than the episode and then the expansion stuff, you save the princely sum of $5. $5 for a game which, by the time the last DLC comes out, will be 6 months old. And you're expecting me to pay $60 for a game that lasts 6 months? I mean, some would say, oh, $10 a month, that's pretty good. But this is just as bad in concept as Evolve. Because if people get that first episode and aren't that interested and don't make it sort of a gripping thing that people are going to want to play, you've just lost $50. And the other fact of the matter is, with that $60, if you are holding out to just get everything at the end because you want it on a disc rather than a digital download, all the so-called special events will probably be gone, or they'll have to add them in at some point next year, or whether they won't, and that's, you know, the reward for downloading the stuff, because who wants a physical disc? Quite a few people, surprisingly. If you look at game sales, certainly over here in the UK, okay, they've taken a tumble. It's like the main game store over here in the UK. But game sales on disc are probably at least 2/3 of the market. The other third is downloads, and that's probably because it includes Android and mobile downloads in it as well. Yet alone stuff like, you know, the GTA games on PS4, or Minecraft on your Xbox One, or the NES retro stuff on the Wii U. So it just doesn't make sense. And so, yeah, IO's statement further on the Hitman website, saying they're basically saying that this decision to go episodic is a shift that we will believe, quote, will ensure the best possible foundation for this game and the future of Hitman. Do you know what? I wouldn't object to you scrapping this whole concept of doing live stuff every week and literally just giving us a game at the end of it. It worked for Hitman. And we know Square Enix are bastards. Because, you know, Hitman sold, I think it was something like 4 to 5 million. Which was a record for the Hitman franchise. Like how the Tomb Raider game was at launch. Both were considered disappointments by the people at Square Enix, because they thought people were going to buy them more. Despite the fact it broke franchise records. You can't expect things to go whoop. You know, last year's AGDQ. I know it's charity stuff. You know, last year's AGDQ raised, I think, about just over $1 million. So, if we're doing on the Square Enix logic, this year AGDQ had to have made about $4 million in order to be considered a success. It made 1.2 million, just over, which is brilliant in itself. But in Square Enix's terms, that'll be like, yeah, it's not an increase as much as we'd like to see. Because they're money-grabbing bastards at Square Enix. they want sales. They want unrealistic sales targets. Clearly. And I think by doing what they're doing and episodifying the thing, the risk is you're going to dilute a lot of the market a lot more. Because I know a lot of people, when they're presented with episodic games, they will not play it until the entire series is there, because they don't want to play the thing, complete it, and then be stuck waiting for a few weeks. In the case of Telltale, that's why it worked for Resident Evil, because we knew it was a 5-episode weekly basis for a month, and people wouldn't have to wait that long. If people are going to wait out for either the disc version or when all the DLC is there so they can complete it in one go, okay, they're missing out on all the weekly event stuff. But there again, it's 6 months that they're waiting for all the content to be present and playable and everything. And of course, by that time, all next year's big games will be coming out. You know, your Call of Duties, your possibly Assassin's Creed. I don't know what's going on with that. You know, your FIFAs, your not Halos. I'm trying to think if anything else that we know is coming out by that time. Not really. But, you know, basically, your big holiday season, big sellers. Probably most of them we won't even know until possibly even by GDC. I think that's March. So, but yeah, they continue on with the statement. We'll be able to respond much faster to feedback, analyze player behavior, and implement changes on a regular basis that simply wasn't possible before. So basically, if somebody's doing something that you don't like, you've got every reason to just patch it out, which is really nice, but is not. And then it says we'll be able to create a long story arc that spans multiple games, and there is the problem. It turns out they're not considering Hitman as a game. They're considering Hitman as a series of 6 games in 6 months. And, you know, they continue on at the same time creating smaller arcs and stories that will find their conclusions within each game, which is probably the people you're killing. But either way, if that's the case, even with like a previously on, like a recap, when you start the next game, how are people going to keep track of, you know, what's going on? It beggars belief. There was nothing wrong with the original games. Hitman 1 wasn't episodic. Hitman 2 wasn't. Contracts wasn't. Blood Money wasn't. Absolution wasn't. The thing is, if you look at it, the first 4 games, at least, and to some extent Absolution, have a story running throughout them as well. Hitman 1 is, you know, Agent 47 brought to life, doing his stuff and getting revenge on his creator. Hitman 2 picks up practically a few years on from that, but has, you know, a good gripping story in itself. Hitman Contracts then actually starts to sort of fill the gap. From what I can tell, nearly all of it is, I think, set between 1 and 2, from what I can tell. because certainly the first level of contracts is him having a flashback to how he got out of his creator's, house and his, lab where he was created. Blood Money obviously had the story continuing of a lot of people wanting him dead, and then you had that crazy sort of, as if it's like a Bad Boys or a John Woo film with 47 faking his own death and then rising at his own funeral just to murder everybody that's there, because literally everybody that wants him dead is there, so he can just obliterate and kill as many as he can. And then Absolution, had the whole concept of, him being on the run and wanted by everyone. So the fact, we've already got a story arc that's gone over the space of, let's think about it. Hitman original was like 97, 98, possibly 99. So the last game was 2012. So we're talking at least in the region of close to 15 years, roughly, which has had a complete story arc in quite a lot in a main essence. So the fact that these 6 games, because that's what I'm calling them now, actually, these games, it's not one game, it's 6 games in one. It's like one of these Atari, Midway arcade treasures things. You get 6 for the price of 1, which might be all well and good, but the issue I just have is there any, other than the weekly exclusive missions that'll only be there for that week, unless of course we realise if you just have it offline and set the internal clock to a different time, it'll work. I doubt it. It's probably always online, those bits of the mission, in order to actually make it work. But either way, the approach that they're taking is basically, you're not getting a Hitman game. You're getting 6. Except, rather than getting a full-fledged game, you're getting practically mini-games. I mean, not mini-games in terms of, the concept of mini-games. I'm talking about you're only getting a portion. They're considering a portion of a whole game as a full game, apparently now. It's just disappointing. The whole aspect of taking a concept that wasn't broken and trying to mix it up to get down with the kids or whatever. And the great thing is, at the end of it, they go, "Thank you for taking the time to read this. The last thing we wanted to do is change what we've already said. Especially this close to launch, and for that we sincerely apologise." Why didn't you just come out in the first place? From the get-go, from the announcement that it'll be digital first, people were immediately going, that seems to be like you're doing some sort of episodic thing. Then people started seeing the layout of the design of what they were trying to do by bringing in DLC in addition to the original game and realising it's episodic. And they were going, no. And now all of a sudden it's come full circle. So, I don't know. I was really looking forward to the Hitman game. And I don't think it's IO Interactive's fault. I think it's Square Enix's fault. And if they're screwing it up this badly on a game that I'm loving, just be worried for what Square Enix is going to do to Final Fantasy VII. You're all petrified. This move for the Hitman game by Square Enix should have you running for the hills and running for your life. That's weird. I did end with an Iron Maiden quote.